Hey everybody, Wes here, and welcome to our video blog. Today we're going to be going over VIP client Rick Swanson's question, what happens to my earnest money if the sale of my house falls through? Now, Rick, thanks for sending us your question. We've got a $25 gift certificate coming your way. And without further ado, what happens to our earnest money if the sale of my house falls through? Now, obviously this is not a good thing when this happens, but let's start first with explaining what earnest money actually is. So earnest money is the good faith down deposit the buyer makes when they write an offer on your home. Now this binds the deal. This is the consideration that is at stake that makes the contract valid. And just remember, for earnest money, it needs to be wired funds, certified check, or a personal check. Cash is not acceptable. Banks don't like to see that because they like to be able to track all the money. And you can with wired funds, certified funds, or personal check. Now, the purchase agreement, the purchase and sale agreement dictates the obligations for both buyer and seller. So there's things that the buyer must do to perform on the contract. There's things that the seller must do to perform on the contract. And when one party doesn't perform, then sometimes we get to a point where buyer and seller just can't agree, and we agree to disagree. And that's when the deal, quote unquote, falls through. When this happens, we execute what's called a rescission agreement. Now, the rescission agreement requires both parties to agree on earnest money disposition. So they identify why the deal's not going through. Could be inability of buyer and seller to agree on repairs, a low appraisal, failed septic, and the seller doesn't want to fix it, a number of different things. But we have to agree on making sure that who gets, why we're terminating, where the earnest money goes, and then make sure that all bills are accounted for. Because any bills that have generated as a result of the purchase contract, they need to be paid, and that's usually taken out of that earnest money. So remember that. Now, if both parties cannot agree, there's a couple different remedies. So number one, the broker holding the earnest money can actually dictate the disposition of the earnest money. So that's actually in our purchase contract. The broker that's holding it can actually say, hey, I'm just going to give it to my seller. I'm going to give it to my buyer, whoever's holding it. And they can do that. Don't suggest it as a broker, but it is a possibility, and it does happen. Number two would be mediate internally. Hey, let's just get together around the table and hash this out. That's what I would prefer. Three would be mediation with a professional mediator. We have those folks. They're really great at sitting down, hearing both parties, and coming to some sort of agreement. Now, that's in the results of a mediation hearing. It's not non-binding. So the fourth option is actually hiring a former arbitrator. And the arbitrators actually, both parties would hire them, and then the arbitrator would actually deliver a binding agreement for the disposition of earnest money. And lastly, you can interplead the earnest money in the court system and let the buyer and seller fight it out in a court of law. So either of those options are the different options on how to dictate earnest money disposition. A good realtor should be able to avoid this from happening by helping you set expectations and negotiating win-win compromises. Hopefully you don't have to experience this, but if you do, your realtor is going to help you. Thanks again for visiting my video blog. If you have any questions that you'd like me to answer here, please just email us back and ask us what those questions are, and we'll have a $25 gift certificate coming out to you. Thanks, and go make it a great day.